Hey guys, hi everyone. Welcome. Hello everyone. I hope I'm audible. Am I? Hey Aditya. Hi guys. Hi everyone. Good evening. Hi Srinivas. Hi Uzair. Hi Aditya. Hi guys. Hi everyone. Hey Omkar. Hi. Good evening. Good evening. How is everyone doing? Everyone doing very well. Good. Perfect. Great. 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 So let's start the class. Let's not waste any more time. I was waiting for all the other students to join, but probably it's weekend. So maybe that's why students are not joining. I mean, all. Maybe they will watch the recording later on. So, in our previous session, we had a very wonderful discussion, I would say, especially for all those students who didn't knew all these things. Okay. So, first of all, we understood box model. What's a box model? We understood that whenever we create any element inside our HTML, browser understands it as a box, right? And that's what box model is. And when browser understands it as a box, it associates few properties with it. Each box has a few properties. The first property was width and height of the content itself. Then we had discussed border. Then we discussed padding. Then we discussed margin. We also discussed box sizing property in it. Once we completed our what is called box model, we understood one of the very important discussion, one of the very important discussion in our CSS, which is CSS units. We understood what our EM is. We understood what our REM is, right? So this is what we discussed in the previous session, and also what percentage means, right? In today's class, we have to go back to our HTML. Okay, we will continue the CSS discussion after this class. So today's class is last class for our HTML. So let me open my HTML folder in this HTML folder, today our discussion entirely will be around understanding what forms are. Forms, HTML forms. Different concepts in it, different tags in it, and which we will discuss. So today's class won't be that much long, but let's see how it goes. Allow me a second only. I will just get water and then we will start. Okay, just give me 1 minute. I will get water. Okay. Hey guys, hi, I'm back. Okay. So we'll discuss one of the very important concepts in today's class. Like this HTML element is discussed every single time. Like whenever you create any web application, this concept is always going to be there. This element is always going to be there, 100% time. What's it, sir? It is an HTML form. When I say HTML form, what do I mean by that? Let me get a tab here. You can see that this URL bar over here. What is this URL bar? It's a a place where we simply type URL. Leave that. Can I say it's a place where this browser is asking users to type input, give input? Of course, yes. Right? If I go on any website, whether it's Amazon.in, whether it is, let's say I'm going to go in Amazon.in or Facebook.com, Instagram.com, you will see always login page, sign up page. Now, when we say sign up page, when we say login page, over there are input fields, there are form elements. And when I say form elements, I mean a place where you expect a user to give input to you. Feedback forms, registration forms, login pages, sign up pages. All these pages that we actually have, they are our form elements. Like this over here is a form element. So if I have to search anything over there, let's suppose I will search laptop over here. It will ask me, hey, type this laptop, and of course, I will receive it as an input. And based on that, I'm going to perform an action, right? If I have to create such kind of thing inside my HTML, what am I supposed to do? I am simply supposed to go there and I'm simply supposed to create an element with a name of forms over here, in which let me simply get a boilerplate. And then over here, always remember, First of all, let's say HTML forms. Okay. Now, in order to define a form, we use simply a form tag. Okay. Now, there's an action attribute. Ignore it. We will not discuss it because it's irrelevant for us for the entire MERN. It used to be relevant long time ago. Now it's irrelevant, at least to a lot of extent. It is used in MERN somewhere, but we will not discuss action over here. Remember, I told you in first session of HTML, there are two types of tags, semantic tag and non-semantic tags. And when I talked about semantic tags, I told you that most of these semantic tags, they behave like a container, a parent to the related group of elements. Similarly, when we talk about form, it is nothing like it's not going to put a specific style on the elements inside it, but it's a container for all the form elements. Yes, it has some of the events that are associated with it, which we will see eventually later on in the JavaScript. But at this point of time, just understand this form element is nothing but actually a container. A container over there within which we will simply wrap all of the children's that belong to form. Whenever we talk about any input field, I mean a field where you can expect user to type something, we have a simple tag and it's called input tag, like this. And let me try to divide my screen into two parts. So if I go here and if I go live with this particular application, you can clearly see that I have an input field now. If I try to zoom it a little bit, you can see an input field over there, right? Now in this input field, I can simply say ADFAR, which means it's asking me to type a text over there. But if I create a form like this and there's only one input tag there, and if this input tag is attached to my website, do you think that user will be able to understand what user is supposed to type over here? Of course not. Unless and until you don't add a label to it, like this is what this input field is for, user won't be able to understand what this input field is for. So for that, there's a very important form element which we discuss is called a label. Okay. And in this particular case, I will simply say maybe username. Now, when I say username over here, you can clearly see I have username is equals to this. So now it gives a little bit of idea over there that this username, I'm asking user to type username in this input field. If you pay close attention over here, when I created label tag, it gave me a for attribute with it. Sometimes in interview, sometimes like 1 in 100, a probability case. Someone might ask you, what is this for attribute for a label tag over there? As the name itself says, what is this label for? This label that you are creating, what is it for? I will simply say it is for this input field. Let me simply go, it is for a username, right? It is for username. But I have no connection of this input field with this label yet. So what I do is I will simply go here, give it an ID. ID is equals to username. Now over here also in front of ID, whatever I have typed, that's the exact same thing that I have typed in front of for. Now they are connected. Now my browser knows this label is for this particular input field. That is why when I even click on this, it opens up this input field. Now it's connected. So if you see here, when I click on this, it opens up this input field. If I don't write, if I write anything else, now if I click on it, nothing happens. I'm clicking on it, nothing happens. But as soon as I connect my for and ID over there, they are linked to each other. This label is for this input field. So that's why we use for attribute, and that's why we have ID attribute over there of input field. So ID attribute maps my input field with the label using for attribute of label, tag over there. Now when I click on this, it opens up, it focuses, it puts a focus over there on that input field. Am I clear? Do you understand what for attribute is? Give me a quick information. Done? Perfect. Now, in this case, let me first of all go and let me create a button. And in this case, I will simply create a button. Let's say it is simply register. Okay. I have a register button here. Let me do one other thing. Let me simply add a break over here. Okay, a break like this, so that this register button will be at the bottom. Now, in this case, what I want is I simply want to understand one very important point over here, which is Sarji, when I go on a real website, over there's not just input field that is asking us to type text. Like you can see this input field, I am telling it the type attribute of this is text. That's why when I go here, I can type text in it. But what if I want this over here to contain some other type of format? How can I do that? So for that, always remember what we have is we have simply type attribute which determines everything, what type of this input field is. So tag is same. Only the type will determine what do you want, what thing you want in the output. What do you expect your user to type inside this input field? If I go here, let me try to go and let me try to copy it. And I will simply go and paste it like this. So as soon as I paste it, one very simple thing we need to understand here. Okay, this is something that we usually follow when we work with real forms in real websites. At this point of time, if you look at this website, you can see first input field and label, second input field and label. They are in the same page. I mean, same line, sorry, right? Most of the time is you don't see that. You see it very rarely that there are two input fields in the same line. That's why what do we do is we will simply go, one of the very simple solutions is after every input field, I can simply add break. Now when I add break, you can see this input field is shifted to next line. But this is not what we do in real examples over there. What we do is we simply tell it treat these two input fields over there as a block level element. And when I talk about block level element, I mean div. So in a similar way over there, instead of adding breaks everywhere, I will simply go add each section over there in a div. We know when we talk about div tag over there, it is nothing but actually a block level element. That's why we need to add a div over there so that my each label and input field will be shifted to a new line. And this kind of form we see in most of the places. By default, when we talk about label, when we talk about input, they are inline level elements. Remember that inline level elements. Am I clear, guys? Does it make sense? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat. Only two students are typing, Aditya and Uzair. What about rest? Now over here, second input field, I will simply talk about over here, like this is an email, right? Now when I go email, what is the type of my input field in that case? Type itself is email over here. Now if I go here, if I simply say, let's suppose Adfar sheet like this, then I will simply also go SSS. Now when I click on register over there, it actually gives me a warning. And what is that warning? Please include an @ in this email address. So what does that mean? That means when we implement type email, I am trying to validate this input field against a specific type of input. So when I say type text, I am trying to validate this input field against text. Any kind of text can work. But over here, it must contain a format of email. And what is that? @ over here. So if I go @ and now if I click on register, now it says dot. There's dot missing. So I will simply go something like this, .com, something like this. Now if I try to register it, you can clearly see it refreshes the page because now it accepts both of these things. In text, anything is possible, but it will be treated as a string. It won't be treated as a number. Like if I go here, if I simply say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it is a text, but it's not a number. Like it's not number, it's text. Am I clear? Right? I hope that makes sense. In a similar way over there, let's try to explore some other type of input fields. So let me go here and let me try to paste it. In this case, I will simply go say for this is email over here. Let me write over here, this ID is email. Now see what's going to happen. This label, I am trying to attach it with this ID. This ID, I am trying to attach it with this label. So that's why when I click on this, you can see this input field is opening. When I click on this input field is opening. Why? Because that's how it is, right? So that's what I have done here. I have connected my first label with the second input field, the second label with the first input field. So let me go here and let me write this as email. Now they both correspond to their respective email over here. Third input that you might have seen is password. Now, when I say password over there, what does that mean? That means the input field where whatever I type, it gets hidden. It gets hidden as ... or ****. So now when I go here, I will simply type over here that my type of my input field over here is password. That's why when I go here, if I type anything, you can clearly see it is in this format. Like it is text, but it is hidden. It is text. It can be alphanumeric, special letters, alphabets, characters, numbers, whatever you want to type. But make sure that this is going to be hidden. Am I clear? Am I clear? So this is password. Type is equals to password. So let me simply go say over here, for is pass, and this over here is pass. Before I move forward with some other type of input fields, let's understand one very important thing over here, which is, you know, you go to a lot of websites. Let's suppose, for example, over here to this website. If I refresh the page, so I want to remove this laptop here. Huh? How do you know that you have to type something over here so that it will search the product? Because inside the input field itself, you can see there's a label attached, right? Like I don't have a label outside of the input field. I have the label inside the input field. And as soon as I start typing something over here, you can clearly see that label gets vanished over here. For that, every input field has a attribute which you can add. And what is that attribute, guys? That attribute over here is called placeholder. So I can simply go say placeholder. I will simply say enter username. So now instead of adding labels over there, I can simply have the input field itself saying what I'm actually about. So enter username over here like this. In a similar way, I can simply go here add a placeholder. And what is the placeholder? Placeholder over is enter username. If I'm not wrong, if I remember correctly, when we talk about our, I hope this is visible to all of you, right? So let me add Alt Z. So for an input field, sir, for phone numbers, patience. I will discuss most of the texts, types. When you go to an input field, where you simply write type is equals to text. To this kind of input field, there's one or two attributes which we use, which determines how much length of a text it can accept. Sometimes you have a requirement that your text should be only 20 letters, 20 alphabets long, 30 alphabets long. Minimum length should be this. Then, like if anyone types username, it has to be at least 3 letters, at least be 5 letters. So for that, I have one thing called as min length, if I'm not wrong. Maybe I might be wrong, but let's try to test it out. Is it min length or min? So let me try to test it out. So enter username. I will simply go write something like this, register. No, exactly. So it's min length. So min length over there, you can clearly see now when I implemented SD, you can see it says, please lengthen this text over here to 7 characters. You are using only 2 characters. Now, if I add more characters to it, it works. So that's what we mean by min length. Min length can be implemented on most of the input fields, but usually we implement it on text input field. In a similar way, I can simply go say max length. And what's the max length? Let's suppose max length is 10. Now, if I go over here, max length, okay, sorry, I have max length over here. Now, if I type something like this, you can see now it's not allowing me to type. It has allowed me only 10 characters over there, and now it's not allowing me. If I add 4, it's not going to work. So we have to add at least 7 to 10, and now it works. So min length and max length are 2 attributes of input fields that simply add an extra little bit of validation. And what is that validation? That these many alphabets I will allow, these many alphabets I will allow. So this range I will allow. So that's what I mean by min length and maximum length. I hope that also makes sense. Another very important attribute which we use on each and every single input field, which we can use everywhere. What is that? That's called a required. Do you see, have you seen in a lot of cases, guys, when you go on a website, anywhere, you are supposed, let's suppose you are filling your college form or anything else. You fill up your details and you miss some input fields. And then as soon as you click on this, it says, no, there are some fields that are mandatory to supposed to be filled. Yes or no? There's star mark on that, on those input fields. And if you miss one of them, your form won't be submitted. So you must fill those input fields. Some input fields are optional. Some input fields are mandatory to fill. Have you guys seen such kind of thing? right? So for that, whatever input field you want mandatory to be filled, to all those input fields, you can add required. What can you add? Required. Required simply means that when this form will be submitted, this has to be filled. Please fill out this field. It won't allow me to fill it. On the same time, if I remove this, now it is allowing me to fill this field. You can see it's allowing me. But when I add required over there, it means this input field has to be, typed over there by the user in order to register over there in this particular form. So we have required attribute, a very important attribute which you might see over there a lot of times. So required attribute, I can simply go make a required attribute. Now if I go here, type some username, type some email, and if I click on this, it says please, first of all, 7 letters. So let me add 7 letters. Now it says please fill out this form. Why? Because this is required over there. Now, if I click on this, it works. So that's what we mean required. So this is required. So let me remove this. Let me remove this. I hope required attribute is also understood. What are the other types of input fields? Let's try to check that. So other types of input field that we actually have is number. So number is one another. Maybe I am trying to store my age. Okay. Now, when I say age is a number. Age cannot be a text. So for that type itself is a number. And as soon as I do that now to the age, you can see this up arrow and down arrow. This up arrow and down arrow. Why? Because now you can fill it as a number. You can add any number over there and it's going to properly work. Let me remove the required part here. So now if I can register, it works. So when we say type number, it means inside this input field, I am expecting user to type only numbers. And with respect to numbers, you all also can have minimum and maximum. Like this is not minimum length and maximum length. I mean minimum. What's the minimum number a user can enter? When we talk about age, what's the minimum number, guys? 0. पैदा होते ही मर गया. Age 0. Maybe 100. It cannot be more than 200. It cannot be more than 150, right? So we need to understand that with this age input field, there's min, there's max. So we can implement min, not min length. Min length and max length simply talks about the length of a string. How many characters are allowed in this input field? When we talk about min, it's simply range. This is the minimum value, 0. And then I will simply go say max. What is the maximum value? Let's say 100. Now, if I go here, and you can see automatically it has, reduced the size of this input field. Now, if I go here, let's suppose I will simply write, let's say minus 22 over there. As soon as I click on register, it says value must be greater than or equal to 0. Very good. Let's simply go and remove this and let it. I don't know what happened. Okay, so let's go here. Let me simply type 123 again. Value must be less than or equal to 100. So it means I have to simply select a number between this range. And once I do that, it's allowing me. So when we talk about type is equals to number, we have a min 0, max over there. Min and max simply talk about how many characters are, what is the minimum number, integer value that is allowed, and what is the maximum. What other type you are thinking of? Tell me quickly. Maybe you are talking about DOB. I want to select a DOB. And for this particular DOB, I don't need my min max. I can simply go say type is equals DOB. Can I write type is equals to DOB? Of course not. Like DOB is not a type. Date is a type. So I can simply go say date or calendar. Now, when I say date over there, you can see DOB is this date. So date might be there. So once I go there, I can simply go, this is the DOB. And if I click on this, perfectly fine. So whenever you are dealing with such input fields where you are trying to expect your user to give you some date, last working day, or deadline for a particular thing, or your DOB, or something else. So for all those things, what do we have? We have over there DOB, type is equals to date. If I'm not wrong, there's one the type that we have, calendar. Maybe I might be wrong. I am wrong. So calendar is nothing but date is. Calendar is in material UI. Calendar is not in HTML. Ignore that. So we have type date, right? I hope that also makes sense. What else? What else? What else can you think of? What else input have you given to, you have filled in the HTML or in the websites in different places? Time we don't have. I don't think we have time. Maybe there might be time, but I don't think we have time. Time is there. So time is there, yes. So you have to simply explore. So if I go here, this one, so this is 6:30. So I can go here, this 24 o'clock. And I think with respect to if type time I am writing, so automatically understand that there will be some attributes with the help of which I can simply control the time. Right now it's 24 window. Maybe I have 12 window where AM and PM will be selected. So do a little bit of research around that. It can be there, right? Very good. So phone, phone type is here. So let me simply go here, Control C, and I think phone can be usually controlled by number as well. So when we talk about phone, it can be controlled by number as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess if I'm not wrong, there's a proper phone attribute as well. So let me simply go and write phone, in which I will simply say phone. So when I say phone, it's a number. It's a number, yes. So now I can simply go write number. Although you can see I am able to write text as well. So which should not be allowed. So that's why it's better to always have a number over there. Although when we talk about validations now, remember one thing. See, when I talk about text here, like I have implemented min length as an attribute, maximum length as an attribute. Maybe there's some other validation that we want, right? Maybe I want that username should only contain text, it should not contain numbers. Or maybe there should be one capital letter, one small letter, and all of those things. When we talk about these kind of validations, we use JavaScript for it, a proper JavaScript for it to implement proper validations. Even there's one very important thing that we learn called as regex, regular expressions, which allow us to implement validations on input fields. So even if you implement type is equals text, you can control everything for that input field, but using JavaScript. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now another thing that I can remember over here correctly as there are a lot of types, lot of other types, lot of types. For example, one of the types that I have is color. Now when we say color, what does it mean? It means sometimes I want to select a color. Maybe there's some requirement in my web application why you have to select a color of a shirt. Like in a shopping website, you simply ask the users to select color. So we have colors. So in order to select a color, we have colors. In a similar way, I will simply go say input field. When I talk about input field over there, there's type, what is this called? What is this called? What is it called? Type, color, and let's simply say range. Another one is range. Now, when you say range, it's something like this. You know, volume for any music player. You want to simply select a volume for a music player. In that particular case, you can clearly see you have a type range, right? In a similar way, I have input field. Y type is equals to file. You want to upload a file. So in that particular case, you simply choose a file. Now, when we talk about choosing a file, we can clearly see type is equals to file, right? And we have input field over there. Now, when we say input field, another type is reset. What do you mean by reset? A very important. It's a button. For example, I have typed some name over there. I have given email. I have given some password. I have written some number. I have selected this. Now, suddenly you realize that all of these values are wrong. Now, instead of refreshing the page, you click on reset. Reset means all the elements inside this reset them to their original value that they have, the default value. So that's what reset means. So the point that I'm trying to make you understand over here is that when we talk about input field, there can be different types of input fields. Even I don't know all of the types over there. But I know that if I am sure that this is the type of input field the user is going to give me, there is a type field for it. I know that. So please go through rest of the types on your own. I am going to discuss two types over there. Two simple types, very important types over there. You sometimes see, let's try to keep it there because we are learning, we are not creating. I'm going to create a div. In this div, I will simply add a label, and this label is going to simply say gender. Now, when we say gender, how many genders are there? How many genders are there? So we have two genders, right? Male and female. That's it. Two genders. Three genders. Okay. So we have three genders, right? So we have male, female, and other. Now, when we talk about this label over there, what are the possible values that we have? Male, female, other. Three input fields. But it means that there are three options kind of thing, right? And when we talk about three options, user can select only one of them. User cannot select all, right? Yes or no? User can select only one. For example, I will simply go write input. Okay. Input in this particular case, I will simply tell it this input is text, which of course will not be there because we don't see it like that. But we see something like this type radio. And this radio in front of this, I will simply say mail. This is what you kind of see, yes or no? Right? So maybe I will write mail in front of it instead of at the end. So I'll simply go write mail like this. So I simply have mail like this. Then in a similar way, I will simply go Control C, Control V. I will write female. Then I will simply go here and then I will simply go and write one another called as other, like this. So whenever you need an input field that looks like this, for that type is radio. Remember that. It's one of the very important things that you need to understand. In order to get a selective options, this circle like this, for this we have type is equals to radio. But at this point of time, if you look at it, I am able to select all of them. Should this happen? And why am I able to select all of them? Because right now this input field is independent. It has no link with this particular label. It has no link with this label, or these three inputs are not related to each other. These are three different input fields. Yes or no? That's why if I go right now, I'm able to select any of them. So male, female, other. I'm able to select all of them. What should have happened if I select male and then I suddenly realize I am not male, I am female? Now, when I click on this, this should automatically be unchecked. That's what should happen in case of radio buttons. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? Do we guys agree with that? Right? If I select other, these or this, if any one of them is selected, that should be unchecked, unselected. But how do we link input fields? Let's understand one very important thing. You might hear, you know, when anywhere on the YouTube or whenever you go and learn HTML forms from anywhere, you might hear that one of the very important statements that is being said about forms. It is that HTML forms, when we create, each input field should have a name attribute. Like this is said, although I don't believe in it because it is 100% true for at least radio elements. The rest of the things we can work in a different way because we use React. We don't use our normal HTML to store stuff from form to database nowadays. We use React. We use MongoDB. We use Express. We use Node.js. We use Mern. We don't use HTML normal HTML way. But what does name attribute do? And why is it very important for us to understand? Because trust me, if I am an interviewer, I have taken hundreds of interviews. If I am an interviewer and I have to ask one question from form, I will ask explain name attribute. This is what I'm going to ask. Each element must have a name attribute. This is one of the very important statements which we always make. Let's suppose there is this input field which simply contains my username. There is this email. There is this password. And then there is this gender. And in front of this gender, I have male, I have female, I have other. Right? Then I have a button over there which is called register. Now, technically, when I, being a user, leave that I know what coding is, leave that I know how it works. Just tell me if this is the website of Adfar, adfar.com. And I have typed my username, I have typed my email, I have typed my password, and I have selected one of them, only one of them. Let's suppose I have selected mail. Like you don't have to suppose I will select a mail. And when I click on register, what should happen? What should happen? Like you have filled all of the details, username, email, password, and mail. I will click register. What should happen? Like that's what I am saying. Now I will register, which means submit. I'm going to submit it. What should happen? What should happen? Simple, in simple terms. Not refresh. Tell me what will happen with this data. Very good. Data will be saved. So it means that this data will be simply taken and it will be stored in the database, right? And then it will refresh or whatever it is supposed to do. It's completely up to it. We don't care about that. But of course, yes, one of the very important things we need to understand is that it will be saved. But I have a simple question. Even let's suppose I have connected my form with the database. But how does it know whatever I will type here, it will be stored in this database? Whatever I will type, it will be stored here, it will be stored here. How does it know? Let me even make it very easy for you. Let's suppose in the database, I have created a table that looks like this. Over here, we have username. Over here, we have email. Over here, we have password. Over here, we have gender. Okay. Now, as soon as I click on register, whatever I have typed in here, it should come here. Email here, password here, gender here. That's how it should be saved. But my question is, how does my form know whatever I will type here, I have to store it below this particular column? How does it know I have to store it below this particular column? How does it know I have to store it below this column? And how does it know I have to store either three of them, whatever is being selected, below this? We use a name attribute for it. So whatever the name of this column is, we use the same name for that input field. So I will simply go, let's suppose I will simply go here. And in this case, I'm simply going to go inside this particular input field at the top. And I will simply, for this input field, the name of this is username. It means when I will design the database table for it, in the database table, the column name where this will be stored will also be username. So it will try to map this name, username with the username of database. So similarly, I will go here and I will simply write name over here is equals to email. Yes or no? Does it make sense what I'm trying to say? Right? Now over here, similarly, when I talk about this particular values, gender, don't you think it does not matter whether I select a male, whether I select a female, whether I select other? They all will go under the same name attribute in the database. Yes or no? So to link all of the input fields whose type is radio, all we have to do is we have to give them a name, and that name is gender. So we simply will go here and we'll simply write name, and that name is gender, or whatever name you want to give. It's a database collection name. I mean the column name. So name over there, and this name over here is called a gender. So now these three know in the database when you click on register, all of these three input fields will go below the same column, below the same entity, below the same field in my database. So that's why, and at one point inside the database field, I cannot have multiple values. There will be only one among them. That's why now if I go here in this particular case and if I try to open my website, if I select this, then I select this, only one of them is being selected. Why? Because it makes sense now. In the database, only one of them will be stored. It cannot store three. Only one of them will be stored like this. Am I clear? Does it make sense? Am I clear? Everyone must reply. Perfect. Another very important thing. Now over here, I have selected mail. I am simply trying to click on register. Tell me what will be stored in the database. I have selected this one, and I will click on register. In the database, that field, that column, what will be stored for that row? What will be stored? Which gender will be stored? That's what I'm asking. Will it be male? Will it be female? Will it be other? Or will it be anything else? What will be it? It will be nothing. Nothing will be stored. Like, see, there's one very important thing that you need to pay attention to here. If you look at this input field here, do you think this input field is somehow connected with this? Of course not. It's a separate string. It's a separate string which I'm putting in this div. It's a separate string which I'm putting. This is nothing but a label that I want to display to a user. This is nothing but a label that I want to display to a user. This is nothing but a label that I want to display to a user. So, sir, when I click on this particular radio button, what should it store? For that, we use a value attribute. What? Value attribute. And value can be M over here. I can simply go here, value attribute. In this value attribute, it can be F. I will simply go here, value attribute. And in this particular case, my value can be O. So even though right now in my output, if I select a male over here, tell me now what will be the value that will be stored in the database? M, not male. This is simply for user interface. How it is stored in the database, that is up to the developer. What are the mnemonics? Sorry, what are the nomenclature that developers are using in that case? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not like I select a male, male will be stored. Simply, whatever I'm representing my male with, whatever I'm representing my female with, whatever I'm representing my other with, it can be M, it can be 1, 2, 3. It can be anything. It can be ME, FE, OT. So this value that I'm trying to store, that's what will be stored over there. Right? And even whenever you type anything over, let's suppose I will simply say Adfar. My form will automatically take this Adfar and put it in this input field's value attribute. So everything is stored as a value. So this is a value attribute of input field. This is a value attribute. Over here, I am typing, so it means it will automatically go to value. Over here, I don't have anything apart from this apart from this button, radio button. So that's why we need to write value. This over here, whatever I write, it will automatically go to value attribute. Whatever I will write, it will automatically go to value attribute. But value attribute is everywhere. Each and every single input field that we have, they all have value attributes. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? Done? Perfect. Now, this is one type of buttons kind of thing, we can say. Sometimes you have checkboxes now. Checkboxes like, hey, select skills. Value, again, let me tell you value. When I talk about this input field, whatever I will write is inside input field. Always remember this input field is value that I'm typing. My HTML automatically links this value with the value attribute of this input field. So, for example, let me explain this. I will go to this input field. I will simply say value, and value is equals to, let's say, Adfar. Now, when I go value is equals to Adfar, do you see what the value is written inside this input field? That's what value means. So value is simply whatever the input field contains. Right now it's Adfar. If I go write anything, this becomes the value. If I go, this becomes the value of the input field email. This becomes the value of the input field password. This becomes the value of the input field age. And similarly, so on and so forth. Over here, these, for this radio buttons, like I don't have an input field where I will type male, female. No, these are radio buttons. This radio button and this particular label, they have absolutely no connection. Absolutely no connection. This is simply a label for better user experience. This is a label for better user experience. Even if I remove this, let's suppose I will simply remove this. Even if I remove this. Now tell me, if user select is this, clicks on submit, what will be stored in the database? If I select this, still M, still M. For this, still F, for this, still O. The only thing is, when user goes to this website first time, they don't know what this represents. They don't know what this represents. They don't know what this represents. That's what we have is we have our, I have put a string over there, a label over there. Is it clear, guy? Aditya? Understood? Perfect. Now, another type of input field. Okay, moving a little bit forward. Now, we have discussed a lot of input fields. I mean, input types. There's one very important type that we usually talk about, and it's called checkboxes. Okay. For example, I have a label. Okay. This label that I actually have is simply saying select your skills. Now, when I say select your skills, it means there will be a lot of skills, right? Select your skills means there will be a number of skills, and from those number of skills, I have to select one, maybe. How do I put multiple options here? We have another input field where the type over here is called checkbox, right? And when I click on checkbox, you can see a square like this tick. You have seen this kind of input field? You have seen, right? So in a similar way, I will simply go Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V over here, and maybe another Control V. Now I have 5 checkboxes over here. This checkbox, this checkbox, this checkbox, this checkbox, this checkbox. Now you guys tell me quickly. You guys tell me quickly. Are you able to figure out what this checkbox is for? What this checkbox is for? What this checkbox is for? What this? No. That's why I will simply go in front of it. I will maybe simply write HTML. And for this, I will simply write CSS. For this, maybe I will write simply JavaScript. For this, maybe I will write simply React. And for this, I will write maybe over here. What am I going to write? I am going to write over there maybe Node. Now, when I put all of those things, now it gives a clear idea to me. Okay, when I talk about select your skills, it simply means select your skills among these 4. So I will select this, I will select this, I will select this, I will maybe select this. I'm not selecting Node. But over here, there's a possibility of that maybe a user can select more than one options. Do we agree with that? Maybe a user can select more than one options. Like it's not necessary user will have only one, what is this called, skill. User can have multiple skills over here. And right now, you guys tell me quickly, if I click on submit, which skill will be stored in the database? None. Very good. Nothing will be stored. Why? Because this HTML is absolutely having no relationship with this particular checkbox. So what we need to do is we need to simply go, and for each, I need to go give value. And when we talk about value over here, this value simply, maybe I will simply store HTML here. Maybe I will simply go say value. And when we talk about this value, maybe CSS. Then I will simply go here. And for this, I will simply go say value. And value over here is equal to JavaScript. Then over here, maybe value. And this value over here is equals to React. Maybe value over here. And this value over here is equals to Node. Now, if I click on submit, now it makes sense. Now I can select any one of them, or I can select even none. Checkbox means none. So if I click on this, if I again click on this, it's not getting unchecked. Once it's selected, it's selected. When I talk about checkbox, you can unselect it. Unselect it over here. Okay. Sarji, I have a simple doubt, which is, okay, tell me one thing. I have one other question. If I go here and select now these 3, if I click on register, what will be stored in the database? If I select these 2, what will be stored in the database right now? If I select these 2, HTML, CSS, okay. Srinivas says nothing, okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? What will be stored in the database if I select these 2? HTML, CSS, okay. Anyone else? Nothing will be stored in the database because I have not told it to which collection, to which column you have to map it. So for that, we need name attribute. If you don't have name attribute over here, if I'm using React, then in that case, there's something else. But we have to use name attribute. And what is the name for this skill? Over here, what is the name for it? And name for this is maybe skill over here. Then I will simply go over here. I will simply say name. And what is the name for this skill? Why am I writing everywhere name skill? Because all of these input fields, they respond to the same question. They respond to the same column in the database. So skill is equals to name. Sorry, not skill is equals to name, but name is equals to skill. So name is equals to skill. Now, if I select this, and then if I click register, now HTML, CSS will be stored inside the same column in the database. Now this is a complete checkbox. Am I clear? Done. Very good. Give me a quick confirmation. Of course, can we still select? We can still select multiple. See, because checkbox over there demands multiple. Radio does not demand multiple. Radio demands a single. Checkbox over you can select still multiple because it's the behavior of how checkboxes work. So yes, you can select a multiple. Let's suppose you have a website where you have to simply teach JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript. Now for this course where I am supposed to teach JavaScript, When students will come, they will try to register. At that point of time, there's a note that I have mentioned that HTML is prerequisite. Like if you don't know HTML, don't submit the course form. This course is not for you. Don't you think in that particular case this HTML has to be checked always? Like this skill has to be there. So when I go and refresh the page, it means this particular field should be checked always by default. So for that input field, we can use an attribute called as checked. Now when I say checked over there, if I refresh my page, you can see it's checked automatically. I can uncheck it, but it's checked by default. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes or no? Done. So this checked attribute that we use for input fields. Another very important thing. If you look at this username, maybe you might have seen in websites, especially when let me think of an example, especially when you submit your college form. Maybe somewhere there's an input field, and that input field simply asks you for percentage. Let's suppose inside this particular input field, which is age, I've simply told it I have got 450 marks out of 500. And there is this input field which simply calculates percentage. Now, if I have typed 450 out of 500, what's the percentage? 90%. But I want this to be calculated on its own. So for that, maybe I will write some JavaScript, it will calculate 90. But do you remember that for such kind of input fields, you are not able to edit them? Like you cannot edit them because it depends on another input field, and whatever you type there, it automatically calculates the value out of it. And it's you cannot type, you cannot open it, you cannot edit it. So if such is the case, in that particular case, to that particular input field, you can simply pass an argument called as disabled. And when we say disabled, you can see now this input field that I have, it's disabled. I'm not able to go inside it, and I'm not able to type anything inside it. Am I clear? Am I clear? Does it make sense? Yes or no? So this is called disabled attribute of form. Disabled, with which my input field, it will be, maybe it will have a default value in it. Like for this username, maybe it's always Adfar. So it will be disabled. So I will not give the control to a user so that user will be able to edit this particular input field. So this is called a disabling. Another very important thing. If I'm not wrong, I might be wrong. Instead of disable, I will simply say read only. I think that's also going to work. So when I talk about read only, I'm not able to type. You can see. Now read only allows me to go there, but it's not right. It's not writable. There's a difference between disabled and read only. Read only means whatever the values, it's read only. You cannot edit it. But when I talk about disabled over there, disabled simply means it has a different view over there. You can see now I'm not even able to open it. So now we can see this open. I'm not able to give focus to this particular input field, but over I'm able to give. Am I clear? Do you understand the difference between read only and disabled? Yes or no? Yes or no? Done? Perfect. So we will take a break of 10 minutes now. And after that, can we implement the logic inside converting marks to percentage? No, no, not HTML. It's JavaScript. Logic is JavaScript. So we'll take a break of 10 minutes. What's the time? It's 8:58. Okay, so 10:10, we are going to resume our session. Sorry, 9:10. 9:10. And there are very important things now that we have to learn about HTML forms. So do not leave the class. Stay here up till end. And we will continue our session from 9:10 over here. Give me a confirmation in the chat and then we'll take a break. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. Where are rest of the students? I can see Aditya typing yes, and rest are not replying. Okay, let's start. Let's start. So we have a lot of types of input fields in our HTML forms, and we have not discussed two of the very important types yet. And what are those? Drop downs. Like you might have seen, in a lot of web applications, when you go, they ask you, hey, what's your university? You click on it, and there's a list. And from that list, you select one, right? Now, whenever we have such kind of requirement in our web application, in our HTML forms, we don't have input field. We have one other type of HTML form element, and that's called select. What's it called? Select over here. And to this select over here, you know what name does, you know what ID does. Over here, as soon as I click on select, you can see we got this thing over here. It looks like a drop down. Now, all we need to do is we need to give it options. And in order to create an option, we use option tag itself. And in between, let's suppose I will simply write option is this is my HTML. Then I will simply go right over here option. And when I talk about option, it's going to simply, let's suppose CSS. So I will simply select a CSS. And in this case, also, I will simply go right option. And what does this contain? It contains JavaScript. And one last option over here. So for this option, I will have value, leave value aside for a second. I will have React. Now, in this case, if I simply click on this drop down, I can clearly see those four values over there. Maybe the first option that I will have over here is, hey, select any skill. Select any skill. In this case, also over here, we need to understand that there's only one possible value here. Like I won't be able to select a multiple of them. There's only one. So if I can select HTML, I can select a CSS, and I can select a JavaScript. So this is what we mean by select tag over there, select element of an HTML form. Now, when I talk about select tag of an HTML form, it means simply a drop down, and that drop down will simply allow me to select, give me some options, and from those options, I'll be able to select one. Now, I have a simple question. Same question. Let's suppose I will simply select the CSS, click on register. What will be stored in the database? Nothing. Why? Because I need to give over there the values to it. So maybe for this, it's HTML. Maybe like this. Then over I will simply give CSS, and then I will simply have JavaScript, and then I will simply have React. Okay. And then I will give a name attribute over there. Maybe name is skills over there, like this. So now this is a complete drop down over there from which we'll be able to select only one of the options, and it will be stored in the skills column in the database. Am I clear? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat. Done? Very good. You might have seen another type of drop down. There are two types of drop downs that we usually talk about, okay? In HTML forms, I mean. One is this. Let me do one thing here. Break, break. Okay. Then I will simply go here. Break, break. Now, if I break. See, this is my first drop down. Let me try to zoom in. Drop down, select one of them. Perfectly fine. Another very important thing that I missed is in my drop down, I mean select, there's one of the very important attributes which we might use called as selected. Now, what do we mean by selected attribute? Okay. If you look at this, initially it actually showed me select any skill. Like if I don't write selected, in that particular case, by default, it says select any skill. When I simply put selected attribute on any option, it means even if you don't go inside this input field, HTML will be by default selected for you. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So by default, HTML will be selected. And this will be shown to you as well. So you can simply go even select it. It's one of the same things. So that's what selected means. Selected is a very important attribute. Another attribute another tag that we have in HTML related to my form element, but related to drop down. Do you think that you have seen any other type of drop down? One drop down is this. What is the other type of drop down? Anyone think of it? I will give you 1 minute. What is other type of drop down that you might have seen? Multiple options? No, drop down can only give you one option. Well, there will be multiple options, but you'll be able to select only one. You might have seen a drop down that allows you to type, like in this case, see, in this drop down, what if your skill is not among these, your skill is, let's suppose, Node.js? Will you be able to type that on your own? No. But have you seen input fields where you type something and then from those it gives you a suggestion from the already given options? You select either one of them or you write your own. For example, where it tells you, hey, give me the country code. You write 91 and based on that, it gives you a suggestion. Select your country, you write IN and based on that, it gives you a suggestion. And maybe your country is not, in that case, you will simply write your own country. That we can create with the help of a HTML form element called as data list. What's it called? Data list over here like this. And in this data list also, I will simply go and add options. Options like this. While I will simply have, let's suppose the first one is India. Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. Second one is, let's suppose, going to be equal to Pakistan. Third over there is going to be equals to Bangladesh. Fourth over is going to be equal to Sri Lanka, let's suppose. Do you see anything in the output? Like I have created a data list over there, and unfortunately, I'm not able to see anything in the output. What's the reason? The reason is data list on its own that mean nothing. If you create data list, provide options, it means absolutely nothing. Unless and until you don't have an input tag over there. And to this input tag, you simply use an attribute called as list. What's the attribute called? List. Let's suppose over here, I will simply write countries. And then over here to this data list, I simply give ID, and that ID will simply have countries like this. Now, when I did that over here, now in this particular case, if you look at it, you can clearly see I have an input field at least right now. Yes or no? Do I have an input field? Do I have an input field? Of course, yes. So I have an input tag over there. I am simply writing list is equals to countries. Same thing I wrote for my, what's this called? Data list. Now over in this input field, if I write India, although it's not giving me options. Why is that? Why is that? It should give me an option. There's a small problem somewhere. What is the issue? Like I have connected this input fields list. I'm telling it this. If I'm not wrong, maybe I might be wrong, but if I'm not wrong, we have to make it self-closing option. India. Then I will simply go Pakistan. Then I will simply go right Bangladesh. Bangladesh. Then I will simply go right Sri Lanka. And for this data list, I don't have self-closing tags. So let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Like for selected tag, I do have complete options, but for data list, I have options which are self-closing tags. Now, yes, now you can see. Now there is this particular icon over there. And if I click on this, I have these many options. And from them, I can select one of them. I can simply go select any one of them. But apart from even that, I can even write my own. Let's suppose I will simply write Afghanistan, which it allows me properly. Name attribute is for something else. It's for database. First of all, it should be in front of you. The form element should be visible in front of you. For that, we use this data list. So data list on its own does not mean anything unless and until you connect it with the input field with a list attribute. The list attribute must be connected with the ID attribute of my data list in order to properly visualize that particular list. So what is the difference between this particular drop down and this particular drop down? The difference is over here, whatever the options are, you have to select only one of them. Over here, whatever the options are, you can select any one of them. Not only that, you can write your own as well. That's the difference. Another thing, if I write I, it gives me a suggestion. With I, what do we have? If I write N, it gives me suggestion. There's India with respect to this. So it's kind of a search as well. Right? I hope that makes sense. Am I clear with the difference between this and this? These two, yes or no? Everyone, am I clear? Perfect. Now moving a little bit forward over there. Until now, if you have observed, whatever input field I have used, any input field, even about this as well, Let me remove the read only from here. About this as well. Okay. Does not matter how much I type. It is a single line input field. It is a single line input field. Have you seen input fields with multiple lines available? Like a box, complete big box, where you can write rows and columns properly, a big message, like in a Facebook, a feedback form, a message, an email. So we have such kind of things that we see in forms. For that, again, we have one another type of input field, form element, and that's called text area. Now, when I talk about text area over there, you can see now I have an input field, and this input field is multi-line input field like this. Now, if we want to control how big it should be, how small it should be, for this text area, we have two attributes. Number one is called rows. So if I write 10 over there, you can see these many rows it's going to allow. If I go and write columns is by default 10, let me write 30. So if I write 30, it is like this. It's by default 20, by the way. So I can write like this. So now in this particular case, I can simply go write multi-line input for this particular element. I hope this makes sense. So this is text area. Now, when I talk about text area, it simply is that particular HTML form element with help of which we can create multi-line input fields. Am I clear with this as well? So first, after the break, we discussed select over there. Then we discussed over there data list. And then we discussed over the text area. With this, we have complete our HTML forms. No, there's one other thing. I think let me for some time, since this is a little bit big, so let me try to comment this so that you will be able to visualize it. I have a normal form here, right? I can simply go write some style. Now, when I write style over there, I will simply tell it for this form over there, go and implement the border. Okay. Border being 3 pixel solid over here like this. Done. And you can clearly visualize the form for this. Even let me do one thing. Let me add a little bit of padding. Padding of 20 pixel. Done. If I zoom it a little bit out, this is what my original form looks like. Right. Now over here below, between this phone and DOB, I have to add another form, right? A form within the form, which is specific for my education details, right? Like what I'm trying to tell you is that this is my general form, which contains all of my details. Now, after that, I have to create a form within a form. Maybe that small form will be dedicated for a specific thing. Maybe my education details, maybe something else, maybe my interest is, or maybe something else. And you might have seen such kind of things. So if I go and search field set forms, examples like this, and if I simply go to images, what I'm trying to tell you about is this particular thing. So maybe over here, if I have a form like this, and within this particular form, there's a small form, small nested forms over there. I hope it's visible to you. If it's not, let me try to zoom it a little bit. So maybe I will simply have a normal form. Where is, okay, this one. So look at this particular image. If you look at this particular image that we have, this one, you can see I have my form from here to here, right? You can see that. And then over here, this small form is dedicated for your address. This small form is dedicated for your additional details. This small form is dedicated for your interests. Like this form has a proper label to it as well. This form has a proper label, and you might have seen such kind of forms in a lot of applications. So how do we create such kind of things inside our web application? I mean, inside our HTML forms, we create it using a tag over there called as field set. So let me try to go to left side, and over here I will simply go implement a tag over there called as, what is field set spelling? Okay, this one, field set. Now, as soon as I create a field set, do you see anywhere anything? This one. You can see this thing over there, this particular input field. For this, I will simply go, and now this is simply a form within a form, which has a specific purpose. Maybe it's for my education details. So maybe it will simply have an input field, and this input field will be type text, while I will simply say placeholder, enter degree name, like this. And then over there, I will simply go create another input field, Control C, Control V, Control V. Maybe this is my enter college name, right? And then over here, I will simply enter marks like this, or whatever the input fields are. Normal input fields over here. So you can clearly see if I try to zoom it a little bit over here, this is my normal HTML form. Inside this, we have another form, a small form. Now you will say, sir, if you look at this, this had a little bit of caption to it. We can add a caption over them. This is the most asked question in my forms. It's called a legend tag. So what does legend tag do? It simply allows me to give a caption to it. So I will simply say it is education details, like this. So you can now see over there, this form that I have, it has a small caption over there, and then enter any normal HTML elements. So it will have its own input fields, number, email, password, and all of those things which we have discussed until now. There can be selected tag, there can be text area, there can be whatever. But the point is, in order to create a border that looks like this, what do we use? We use field set over there, and then over after field set, we define a legend. And this legend simply gives a caption to this input field. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes or no? Done? Everyone. So with this, we have completed our forms. Now we can go on the internet and you can simply search HTML form types to check and explore other types that we have. Like we have seen a lot of types. So there's one very important. Yes, we have missed one thing. Over here, I have a button called as register, right? And this register is simply a normal button. But there's also an input field over there as well that behaves like a button. Now, this has a special meaning that this button will communicate with this particular form. I will explain that, Shreya. Allow me a second. So over here, now you can see a button, but this is an input type of a button. And whatever text you want to see on this button will simply, you will write it with a button, with a value attribute called as, and then you will simply put a value. It's called submit. So we need to understand over there that when we talk about buttons, there are two ways of creating buttons. One is normal button tag. Another one is when we have input field over there with a type button and value. Now you will say, what's the difference? The difference is input fields has a lot of other features. There are a lot of events that it supports, which we will see later on. But at this point of time, just understand a type of an input field is type button. And with this, we can simply create a button as well. And usually, whenever we define forms, we don't use normal buttons. We use input fields whose type is button. There's also one another type. Now, when we talk about input, I will simply go type is equals to submit. Now, what does submit do? It again gives me a submit button only. The button holds submit text. Even if I go here and write value, like value is equals to register. Okay. And now this button contains register. But what's the difference? The difference is over there. Later on, you will see this form that we have. There's an attribute which we can use on a form called as on submit. Okay. And over here, I can simply call a function. Let's suppose I will simply tell it alert. Give me an alert called as Adfar. Okay. Now, when I say input type submit, it means when I click on this, it will click on an input field whose type is submit. And when submit will happen on this form, call a function which will simply give an alert. So when I click on register, you can see an alert. So you can perform some actions with it. You will see later on, but at least at this point of time, understand that when we talk about input fields, there's a type button, type submit. This is connected to the form itself on its own, right? Now, Shreya is asking, sir, what does legend do? We are trying to create over there a form within a form, Shreya. Like I have created a field set. I hope you have understood what field set is. Let me remove this legend. Let me simply go copy the same field set and paste it again over here. Now, instead of adding, these details over there, degree name, college name, marks name, right? Are you able to understand what this particular nested form is talking about? Like which degree it's asking about, which degree this is asking about. Are you able to understand that? You're not able to understand that. How are you able to understand that? What degree I'm asking here? Am I asking graduation? Am I asking masters? I'm not asking that. So simply maybe with help of placeholders. What is there's no placeholder? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Let's suppose, let me give a better example. I will simply say enter name. Let me simply say over here, I will simply go and write enter age. I will simply go write enter name, and then I will simply go write enter age. Okay. Now my question is, in this application, in this main form, I already have username. Then what is this name about? What is this age about? I already have age over here. Are you able to distinguish, able to identify the difference between this name and this name? Like which name am I asking about here? Are you able to find a difference between this? Of course not. So for that, what I will do is I will simply give it a legend tag. Legend means caption for this particular form. Maybe I will simply say father's details. Fathers details. Now when I say father's details, you automatically understand that this particular nested form is about father. In a similar way to this field set, I will simply go implement legend, and I will simply say mother's details. Now you are able to understand what this enter name means, because I have a caption for this particular form. I have a caption for this particular form, small form within a form. Now this name makes complete sense. This age makes complete sense. This name makes complete sense. This age makes complete sense because of this caption that I have given to this particular internal nested element. Am I clear, Shreya? Am I clear? Perfect. Very good. So we have discussed these things. So let's move a little bit forward. What are the type we have? So we have color, we have date, we have daytime, local, hidden, image, images here, month is here, number, password, radio, range, reset, search. Come on, search is there, which is very important. Tell is there. So for phone numbers, we have tell actually. So I had somewhere phone was somewhere. So phone over there, I will simply go right tell. Now this is a complete type over there. So this phone that I have now, this is a tell. This is a telephone. So tell is a type over there. Very good. And text over there, time over there, URL you want to add, week you want to add, you can do that. So these are the all types that we have in the input fields. I hope you will explore all of them one by one and you will try them out. Do we have any questions? Am I clear? Perfect. So let me push the code to the repository. Please go and make sure hidden. Let's try test it. I have not used it. I think hidden is simply whenever we want something to be hidden. Maybe let me try to go at the bottom. Do we have hidden anywhere? No. Let me try to let's try to test it out. Let's see what it is, and let me write some text in front of it to find it in the form. So where is it here? So you can see input field, there's nothing. There's nothing in front of it over here. This is hidden. I don't know why it is. Why do we use it? So in front of this input field, we have hidden. It must have some application, of course. Like otherwise, why would it be there? There's a hidden over here. Okay, maybe I will tell you what it is used for. Let me give you a proper usage of it. Maybe you are trying to create an application over there, and there is a button over here. Okay, and on that button, like for example, for this type, for this particular input field, I have by default type is equals to text. Okay, now I have a button over here in this case, and as soon as I click on that button, I am telling it go to this input field and change its type to hidden, which means at one instance this input field was there, and at another instance it's not there. So you can change the type of an input field dynamically. So to make it visible and hidden an input field, for that you can simply use this type. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So check its application properly, check how we can use it and how we cannot. Although trust me, in my 4 years of experience, 5 years of experience, I have worked with forms too much. Even today, I was working with forms for 2 hours with all the validations and things. And trust me, I have never used type hidden. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. Give me the feedback in the comment section, then we can move forward. So I will go and push the code to the repo cd dot dot. Then I have git add dot. Then I have git commit hyphen m. What is today's date? 15/03/2025. And then I will simply push the code to the repository. Git push origin master. Perfect. Great session. Perfect. Great, great, great. Okay, let's meet in the next week. Okay, on Tuesday, we are going to continue with the CSS topics. So there are a lot of topics that we need to discuss. And by the way, from the HTML perspective, we have completed our discussion. So we won't be taking any further topics in HTML. And even I will tell you one thing. There are a lot of tags, 50, 60 tags, which we might have not discussed. But HTML is very straightforward. It's simply a similar syntax used again and again, again and again, again and again. So you have to do a little bit of research on your own. You have to see what other tags there can be, which we might not have discussed. And it's very simple. It's not like it's difficult. That's why we don't put that much focus on HTML. Because I later on will tell you, okay, this is how I get image, I get anchor tag, I get this and that. You already will automatically understand. Okay, it's a tag which stands for this and it does this. Right? But when we talk about CSS, our agenda is to discuss most of it. So that's what we try to do. That's what we will do. But with respect to HTML, we have completed our discussion. Thank you so much for joining today's session. I hope you have enjoyed the session. See you in the next class. Take care of yourself. Good night. Tata. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.